This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good morning, everyone. I want to do something a little different today. Today's Shushan Purim, and the name of this year, I would like to speak about Megillas Esther, and we're going to call this year 10 Imponderables on Megillas Esther to think about until next year. I'm going to ask you 10 questions on the Megillah. New questions, basically. There might be one or two that you heard before. I'm going to ask you 10 questions and no answers. If I have an answer, I'll tell you a thought. But just 10 questions on the Megillah, and then you have what to think about until next year. Okay. This question hit me while I was reading the Megillah, and I think this is Mamish Pella. What happened to... This is an 11th question, because we'll put it on the list. We'll call it 10 questions, but it will be 11 or 12. But I can't name it the 11 Imponderables. It doesn't sound like a good share title. Question number 1. Anybody know whatever happened to Vashti? Anybody have any idea? Where is she? Where did she go? Oh, he killed her. Really? Where does it say that? What? Doesn't say. It just says, Vayosem kesmachus broisha, vayamlicheha tachas Vashti. What do you mean? Okay, instead of Vashti. So what? Vashti was there. She was at the party. He was goizer on her that she's not the queen. Maybe he's saying goizer on her. What's a gzeira? Gzeira is gezeiras. Legoizer yamsuf legzorim kiliyalam chasdai. Okay, maybe that's where it says that he killed her. So I'm not sure I'm going to count that as a question. I just wonder. When I was in Cincinnati, I went to Hebrew Union College, which is a reform institution, but I didn't go into the sanctuary, of course. I went to the library. It's the biggest repository of Jewish manuscripts this side of the world. And they showed me all their Megillas Esthers on microfilm. And most of the old Megillos are illustrated Megillos. And by Vashti, there's a picture of Vashti. You have one guy with a towel around her neck. One guy is pulling on one side. One guy is pulling on the other. And from these ancient Megillas, it looks like they gave her chenek. I always thought that she was hanged. But it's interesting. It doesn't say in the Gemara what happened to Vashti. All we know in the Gemara is that Vashti grew a tail. Maybe they put her in the zoo. I don't know. Okay, but that's not part of the share necessarily. Here's my question. My question is, V'yes malchusa yitain hamelech lirusa ha'toiva mimena. Memuchan said, and her malchus give lirusa. Anybody know what the word lirusa means? Anybody know? Anybody here speak Lashon Kodesh? To her friend, Reyos. And whenever it says Reyos in the Torah, we darshan. Real Reyos, like v'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha, which we darshan, you're supposed to love another Jew, but not another Gentile. Or, even in Parshas Shemais, it says, V'shala ish meish re'eu, v'isha me'es re'usa. Rabbi Mechai asks, what do you mean, V'shala ish me'es re'eu? We're not re'im with Mitzrayim. And you know what Rabbi Mechai says? After the Torah was given, Re'os is only for Jews, but before the Torah was given, all of mankind were Re'im. So then can I ask you one simple question? The last people in the world who will be Re'im will be Vashti and the new queen. First of all, the new queen is Esther. So Esther's Jewish, Vashti's not. They can't be Re'im. And of course they can't be Re'im. Vashti is going to be deposed, probably dead. And the new queen and Vashti, the last thing in the world, they're going to be Re'im. So why in the world is Memuchan saying, O Malchusa yitain hamelech lirusa, with friends like that, right? Who needs enemies? That's the last word we should use is Re'im. Fine. Next. No. Yeah. The Gemara says he was Haman. Maybe some say he was Mordechai. But even so, what's the Re'os over here? Is there Re'os? You want to know who was Memuchan? There's always Goga, but I'm not. That doesn't answer the question. What's the? I don't hear everyone. I hear someone trying to talk, but I don't hear them. Oh, so. The what?
Haman's wife was at odds with Vashti.
Right.
That's why Muhammad made the suggestion.
Right.
So maybe means a ray of Zeresh.
U'machusa yitain hamelech lirusa means to the friend of my wife. Okay. Interesting. Some say Reb Chaim Kanievsky brings. Some say the Pirkei Reb Eliezer says Memuchan was Daniel. So Mordechai is not a possibility. Nobody says it was Mordechai. It was either Haman according to the Gemara Megillah or Daniel. That's question number one. Question number two. So this Memuchan guy establishes the following rule. Lihiyais kahalihish soirer bevesai umedaber k'lashayin amoy. Fine. He makes the rule that the man has to be in charge in the house. Now, why in the world is the Megillah telling me about this rule that Memuchan made that the man wears the pants in the house? Who cares? So Chassam Sofer says this is actually part of the miracle. Why? Because later on when they knock on Mordechai's door, they say, "Hey, where's Esther?" Mordechai should say, "Esther? Who? Why would a woman listen to her husband? I don't know where she is. She's shopping on the avenue." But now that the law was that the woman has to listen to the husband, Mordechai couldn't use as an excuse. He doesn't know where Esther is. She doesn't listen to him because the law is you have to listen to your husband. So the law passed by Memuchan is a key component of the Purim story. But my question is, umedaber k'lashoyin amoy, that now the woman has to speak his language. Why is that part of the story? I mean, who cares? Isn't that irrelevant? Is that an important part of the Purim story? That Memuchan passed the law that a woman has to speak the language of her husband. Who cares? That's so. I mean, it's like a random law in Persia. Whether that was the law or not, that's fine. But why is it included in the Megillah? All right. So I just had the following idea actually, that if the law is the woman has to listen to her husband, then what language should Esther have been speaking? Lashon Kodesh, because she married to Mordechai. They knew, presumably, they knew she was married to Mordechai, didn't they? I mean, Mordechai took her as a wife, so he didn't register. So then if she spoke Hebrew, then why didn't it ever dawn on Achashverosh that she's Jewish? Think about what a miracle it was. That's part of the miracle. Even though the law in Persia was the woman has to speak the language of the husband, and then Esther has to speak Hebrew, so then everybody should have known Esther's Jewish. They still didn't realize. That's like part of the miracle. They didn't even realize. The Gemara says Labayas, that he married her. Okay. So he did a kedushin to her, and then he never consummated? No, the Gemara says that she went mecheiko shel Mordechai lekecheiko shel Achashverosh. So the Gemara says explicitly, not only did he consummate it, he continued to live with her after living with Achashverosh. And that's my third question. Because Achashverosh was looking for Yivakshu lamelech na'arois besulois toivois mareh v'yavked ha'melech pekidim v'yizonara besula. And then at the contest, who won the Vayehav ha'melech Esther mikol ha'noshim v'atisachem rezel lefanav mikol ha'besulois. But she wasn't a besula. So well, she wasn't a basula. Mordechai lived with her, the Gemara says. A lot of people have asked me that question over the years. Most recently, the Herman Mishpacha of Yerushalayim, but that's a well-known question. She clearly was not a Basula, so, but by the way, the Gemara says that Esther, if you wanted to be Toyim Tam Basula, you could be Toyim Tam Basula. Yeah, that's what you want to say, Nelson? That, yeah? Does somebody say that explicitly? Somebody must say that, right? That the Gemara says Vatisachem v'chesed lefanov, that if he wanted to be Toyim Tam Basula, he could. And by the way, Rashi says in Parak Beis V'Gzayin, Mikol Anashim HaBu'ulois Shav Nashim Bu'ulois Kibetz. Even though, in other words, the official policy was he's only gathering Basulois, but the bottom line was he wasn't so makbid on that halacha. Okay. Next question. Parak Beis Pasuk Tesvav. Of Hagia Tar Esther Bas Avichayil Doi Mordechai. So, when the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Avichayil, the uncle of Mordechai, Asher Lokach Loi Lavas, that he took as a wife. Could somebody tell me? We already know who Esther is. We all know Esther is the daughter of Avichayil. We all know Avichayil is the uncle of Mordechai. We all know Mordechai married her. It said this already. So why does it repeat it when it came her turn? I mean, this is like extra information. Of Hagia Tar Esther. Now look, between me and you, it definitely makes it more dramatic for the Balkari to have all those munachs. That's geschmack. But if these are all extra words, there's no identifying information that we didn't know before. Why is it reiterating this at this point that she was taken? By the way, she's the daughter of Avichayil. By the way, Avichayil is the uncle of Mordechai. By the way, Mordechai married her. Maybe. Okay. Good. Parak Daled Pasuk Hey. This is a good question. So, Mordechai over here is the plot to kill the king, and he tells Esther, and Esther tells Achashverosh. I have a question. Esther was abducted by Achashverosh. She's being violated day and night, right? The reason why Big Son and Seresh wanted to assassinate him is because they said this Behema Gasa, he is so thirsty. Because ever since he married Esther, he's busy with her day and night. So, why did Mordechai tell anybody that they wanted to kill him? Let them kill him. I mean, Esther's not going to be in the palace. She's violating Gili Arayas 24 hours a day. So why did Mordechai want to save this guy's life? Anybody know? Now, a lot of people ask me this question on Purim. Rabbi Nissim, Yachnes, and a young boy, Avi Friedman. A lot of people ask this question. Why? You know who else asked me? Rabbi Yanki Schwartz asked me this question. Why did Achashverosh feel? Why did Mordechai want to save Achashverosh's life? For what reason? He didn't even know he would get credit. He didn't tell Achashverosh. He told Esther. And Esther was very nice, and he... By the way, these are not... Yeah. No, because the Gemara says that he told Esther, don't say where you come from. This way Achashverosh won't want to stay with you and he'll send you back. So we see that Mordechai was doing whatever he could to sabotage the relationship. So if that's the case, why did he feel it's necessary to save Achashverosh's life? One idea I had was that, in the times of the kings, after a king would die, nobody would be allowed to use his property. They would even burn down his property, and sometimes the queens would be killed because once you belong to a king, then you're the property of the king. You can't be with anybody else. So maybe Mordechai was afraid that if Achashverosh would die, Esther's life would be in jeopardy. I don't know. Next, Perek Vav. If you have an answer, I'm giving you good material. I'm giving you a lot of questions. Dalet Pasukei. Perek Dalet Pasukei. So, Mordechai knew everything that happened. And what was Esther's reaction? How did Esther know what happened? Mordechai knew, and he ripped his clothing, and he went out into the city, and he cried out, and he wore sackcloth. And Esther had no idea except from her maidens. I mean, Esther didn't know that she didn't have she wasn't briefed by by Achashverosh, by any of the governors. I mean, why didn't Esther know? Isn't that strange that Esther didn't know? And then the pasuk says, "Vayetze hasach el Mordechai el Rechav vayaged lo Mordechai es kol asher karohu v'yes parshas hakesef asher." So Mordechai told Hasach the whole story, and all the money Haman weighed out. How did Mordechai know all the money that Haman paid and Esther didn't know? L'chara, the reason for that is Mordechai Yada, Chazal say, either the Baal HaChaloimos told him, or the Eliyahu Hanavi told him. But then, the Eis Parsha, the Es Paschegen Ksav Adasa Shanitam B'Shin Alajan Nosan Loi Laharoi says Esther. Mordechai gave Daniel the poster that said the Jews would be killed to show Esther. Esther never saw it before. Esther needed, from the outside of the palace, the poster to come from Mordechai to Daniel. What, Esther had never saw the document before? Isn't that strange that Mordechai should give Hasach the document to show to Esther? What, Esther didn't know this? So I think I have a good approach to this. You remember the shir that really when Haman asked Achashverosh, Yikasev le'abedam, I just want to enslave them with an ayin. And then Haman switched the document to le'abedam with an aleph. So Esther knew! But Esther just thought we would be slaves. Okay, Halbatzara. But then she heard Mordechai is Sakva Efer. She didn't know we were going to be annihilated. So Mordechai, she didn't believe it. So Mordechai had to send Hasach with the document that had it with an aleph and not an ayin. That's very interesting. That's an interesting approach. Okay. Yeah. No, he said, do what you want. In other words, I heard what you want, so do what you want. But he didn't even, according to this approach, and the Oyev Yisrael says that even Achashverosh did not know until the end that the Jewish people would be destroyed. Another question. Many times in Megillas Esther, the word Yehudim is spelled with two yuds. Now, in the book, The Concealed and Revealed, we quote from Rav Shlomo Al-Kabetz that the two of them is because it's connected to the 10 commandments that were commanded regarding Amalek on two different occasions. But upon further analysis, and this Reb Sender Schwartz asked me, every time Kemad it says Yehudim in the Megillah, there are two yuds. I counted at least 5 times the word Yehudim is spelled in the Megillah with 2 yuds. Okay. Now, this question we answered on Leil Purim, but I'm going to put it on the list of questions. So, Esther comes into the king unannounced. and Hashem sends the Malach and he stretches out the scepter and he says, okay, Esther, what do you want? He said, do me a favor, come with Haman today to the party. So they come to the party and Esther says, She'elasi uvakashasi. And Achashverosh says, what do you want? And Esther says, come tomorrow to the party. And what does she ask tomorrow at the party? She says, as Ami nasati li ve'ami bevakoshe tinasen li nafshi b'shelasi ve'ami bevakoshe. Why couldn't she say that at the first party? What exactly? She says, okay, come to the party later. They come to the party. He says, what do you want? Shelasi bevakoshe. And what did she say? Come tomorrow. Come tomorrow. So why couldn't she do that on the first part? Whatever she asked on day 2, she should have asked on day 1. So we gave 2 answers. One answer was the Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra answer was she was waiting for some kind of siman min hashamayim that she could capitalize on, that Haman would make some kind of mistake and misstep, and she just wasn't seeing anything. So she made a game time decision. Come back tomorrow. Maybe there would be a siman tomorrow. And we answered as follows. We answered from Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev that Esther had a very specific plan. Because after the first party, it says, "Vayetze Haman bayim hahu sameach v'toiv lev," that Haman was good-hearted. And Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev says the expression toiv lev, good-hearted, implies spiritual elation and a very high madrega. What kind of madrega was Haman on? Haman was the biggest Russia in the world. Why does it say sameach v'toiv lev? So Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev says he felt spiritually infused, participating in the Suda of its Tzaddikas. But that was to his detriment. What Esther's plan was to give him Sudas Tzaddikim, and the Kedusha of the Suda would suck out of him, would snuff out of him. Whatever sparks of Kedusha he had, that would kill him. So in other words, we explained that's why she made 2 parties. Party number 1 injected him with Kedusha. That Kedusha would then go and snuff out whatever spark of Kedusha he would have in him. So this way, by the second party, he'd be dead as a doorknob spiritually, and he would just die. But that's the question. Why did he make 2 parties? This question has been bothering me for 10 years, but I was never able to articulate it. The words that Esther asked at the first party are very dramatic, and they have a special tune. Vatan Esther vatoimar she'elasi uvakashasi. And by the way, that's the halfway point of the Megillah in Sukkim. That's the midpoint of the Megillah. Could somebody tell me why in the world those words are so dramatic? She'ela, because you would expect she's about to ask for some unbelievable thing. And you know what the question is? Can you come tomorrow to a party? I mean, that is the most melodramatic, that's the most anticlimactic. She says, Achashverosh, please come to the party later. They show up in the party, and with bated breath, they said, Archatzi hamalchus v'seyas v'atana, right? V'yomer hamalch v'yaser seyayin, ma she'lo sey, v'naseh noch ma v'akar shezeh, Archatzi hamalchus v'seyas, v'atan Esther v'toimar. Then you pause. She'elasi, and then you say, what's she going to ask for? Oh, imatzasi chen, do me a favor. Yavai hamelech v'haman el hamishteh asher aseh lohem u'machars. Huh? I mean, why in the world do those words have this dramatic trup? And she uses very dramatic words. She'elasi uvakashasi. And what's the big she'el uvakasha? Come to the second party. That's according to our approach from Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev. You could say that she is addressing the Ribbono Shel Olam, and she's saying, okay, I got Haman to the first party, I injected him with Kedusha, my request is, bring him back tomorrow, and tomorrow he's going to be dead meat, because I already put the Kedusha near him, and that's going to snuff out of him. But it's definitely, otherwise, if you just read the Psukim Kipshuta, it's a little bit odd. You have this dramatic request, and she never ends up asking anything major. Okay. The next question I never thought of until this year. I think it's a bomb. Vayisapak Haman. Now, who's Haman married to? Haman, of course, is married to Zeresh. And Zeresh is now introduced. Vayisapak Haman, Vayavoy, Avesoi, Vayishlach, Vayavesoi Havav, V'yazeresh Ishtai. Actually, so Zeresh is introduced as Zeresh Ishtai. And then Vatoimer lo Zeresh Ishtai. Well, I forgot Zeresh was married to him. I need to say again. She said to him, Vatoimer lo Zeresh Ishtai. I don't know who she is. I would have thought it's a different Zeresh. And then later on, again we have Zeresh in Perek Vav Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayisaper Haman Zeresh Ishtai. What? He also had, Zeresh was also his cleaning lady? So you would have thought he's telling now the cleaning lady Zeresh, so you have to say Zeresh Ishtai. Then, Vayomeru Loi Chachamav V'Zeresh Ishtai. Again, why every single time does it say Zeresh, does it have to say Ishtai? Is that the normal way to speak? Well, there's another Zeresh that I don't know about over here? You're not really bothered by that question. I think it's a good question. No, it does. Vayisaper Haman Zeresh Ishtai L'chol Oyhavav. No, when they say back to him, Vayomeru Loi Chachamav. That the Gemara asks. The Gemara asks, why at first are they Oyhavim? They were Oyhavim until they found out that he was going down. And people are only your friends when you have money. When you don't have money, they're Chachamim. In other words, when your person has money, then you have friends. When you don't have money, then everyone else is a bigger Chacham than you, and they give you advice. But listen to this. And this is the last question. What do they say? Mizera hayudim. I always wondered. If Mizera hayudim? What do you mean if? The Megillah said 500 times already that Haman couldn't take the fact that Mordechai HaYehudi didn't bow down to him. So what are they telling him? If Mizera Yehudim, the one thing we know in this story is that Mordechai is Mizera Yehudim. Why is the Megillah saying if he's Mizera Yehudim? Okay, Rabbi Say, so here are the 11 questions. Number 1, L'Reusa HaToiva Mimena, what kind of friendship is that? Number 2, why is it important that they legislated, and that the Megillah mentions, they legislated that the husband dominates the language, she takes on the language of the husband. Number 3, he gathered the Basula, so Esther wasn't a Basula. Number 4, why does it repeat again when it was Esther's turn that Mordechai married her? Number 5, why did Mordechai tell Esther they wanted to kill Ahasuerus, let him die? Number 6, Esther didn't know what it said in the document. Number 7, why so many times 2 yuds? Number 8, why'd they make 2 parties? Number 9, what's the drama of She'ilasi Uvakashasi? Number 10, why every time Zeresh is mentioned does it say Ishtai? And number 11, extra credit, what's Im Mizera HaYehudim? Think about that, give me your answers, and you have the whole year to come up with some good Torah until next year. There you go. If anybody wants to pre-order the copy, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Shkoyach. Good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom. Kol Tov, everyone. Be well. Good Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.